Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Happiness from Within. I'm your host, Jeanette Prado, and today's amazing interview is Cooking with Om, full name Om Rishikesh. He is a vegan chef, recipe developer, floral arrangement extraordinaire, plant-based lifestyle guide, and former monk. Cooking with Om reinvents personal nourishment into colorful, thoughtful, and beautifully crafted lifestyles. Pulling upon the traditional cooking of his Colombian roots, the memories of his young mother lightened up the kitchen with her joy for experimental and worldly creations, combined with culinary training he received within the traditional and Indian monastic setting, and later as a Suez chef for Bhagavat Life, Ayurvedic catering and culinary school. Om's passion for his work flowered from deep sentiments for the healing force and beauty of spirituality, family, and compassion. It was through his own uplifting journey of embracing the Eastern philosophy of ahimsa, or non-violence as respect for all living beings, that he came to know the transformative effects that a plant-based diet has on immunity, appearance, and positive thinking. His personal evolution of health, fitness, and self-regulated empowerment is a testament to this, affirming his commitment to nature's alchemy through cleaner, plant-based, and nightshade-free meals. It was such a pleasure to sit down with this amazing cook extraordinaire. He really just opened up about a lot of personal things, and I know that it's going to really inspire you. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy. Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Happiness from Within. I'm so excited for our guest today, Cooking with Om, known as Om. Hello, Om. How are you today?
Hi, Janet. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump in. So let's start. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Start with your name, where you're from.
All right. Hi, my name is Om. I am a vegan Ayurvedic chef, and I'm originally from Bogota, Colombia.
Great. So what is your passion? Tell us more about your Ayurvedic cooking. Some people out there that might not know what that is.
All right. My passion is cooking vegan food, but I don't like to just cook vegan food. I want vegan food that is detoxing and that helps people create beautiful health. Because vegan food doesn't mean that it's healthy. So how to make food that does not only satisfy the stomach, but nourishes our bodies and calms our mind also. So that's what I am passionate about.
Wow, that's amazing. So we're definitely going to expand more on what your passion is and what that means for you and how your happiness from within is connected with all that. How does that sound? Okay, perfect. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So yeah, let's start from the beginning. Tell us, so you're from Colombia.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about where, your childhood and, what part of Colombia you grew up in, tell me a little bit about your parents. Do you have any siblings?
All right. So I grew up with my father, my mother, and my brother. He's 5 years younger than I am. I grew up in a middle-class family in Bogota. My father and my mother were very young when they had me. She was 18, he was 23. So, of course, I was kind of like a little bit of an experiment for them.
Wow.
Yeah. So, as I was saying, I did to move to Miami, and around that time, where I was 14 years old, I was this child. My father didn't like gay people. This was like a reoccurring theme when I was growing up. That sorry,
It's okay. No problem. Can you expand a little bit on that? Where was that coming from for your dad? Was it like an anger or something he was having within his life, or like a emptiness or sadness? Like what triggered that, do you think?
So when I compare the society that we live in right now, where there is gay people on TV. Only 10 years ago, that was not the case, right? So I grew up in Colombia, which is the South American machismo, where your virility or masculinity is so, it's almost like for a person who is masculine, being having somebody gay around you is emasculating. It's weird. So I grew up, he would always make these comments about gay people, and he would tell my mom that she was going to make us gay if she was very affectionate to us. So I feel that there was something that happened in his life where he may have had a gay experience, or somebody that did something to him that made him fearful of homosexuality. So I grew up being afraid of being gay. So I came out when I was 23 or 24, which was a long time to come out. So of course I grew up with this fear, and but I was very good at hiding it. So I created this personality for myself where I couldn't date a girl because girls were my friends. I was not attracted to them. I found out that I was gay when I was around 11 or 12, watching a movie where I saw a naked man, and I felt this almost like Cupid in my heart, like this fear and this attraction. And I was like, I am gay. And, and then imagine I'm a teenager trying to find my place in the world, and then my parents all of a sudden uproot me from Colombia to Miami, and then I am in complete isolation because I don't know who I am. I have to enter a new high school, make friends, and I learned English in Colombia, but it's different because I have an accent just because I went to a bilingual school in Colombia, but I learned from people that have accents. So it was already this many like separating worlds for me, and it was so confusing that I started asking myself, why was I gay? And it seemed that I grew up as a Catholic, in a Catholic family, and in Christianity I always see that there's this weirdness for homosexuals also. So I was always wondering whether God didn't like me, whether if he had punished me, or if he would punish me for being gay, because that's what I heard all my life. But then I found a Buddhist book that some of my friends that I used to go to raves with had. And when I read this book, I was fascinated by the concept of reincarnation. And that's the first time that I brought light into the darkness that I was always hiding. Because I was like, oh, I'm not this body. This body is temporary. So whether if I am gay or not gay or straight or a woman or whatever I am a soul, and this body is temporary. And that's when it connected. I was like, this is what I want to look for. I want to look for spirituality. I prayed. I prayed to God to show me, to guide me so that I could meet people who were looking for him, and that I could find people who had found him. And that's where my passion for spirituality started. I was 16 years old, and I went to the library and got as many books as I could find of Buddhism, Rastafarianism. I had dreadlocks. I would meditate or try to meditate until I found the Hare Krishna temple in Miami. And the reason why I found it is because I had become a vegetarian, because the concept of reincarnation talked about respect for every single living entity, that animals had souls. So I became a vegetarian because of that. And when I was looking for a vegetarian restaurant, the only one that I could find was the Hare Krishna temple. And when I went to the Hare Krishna temple, the first thing they did was welcome me with food. And it was beautiful. It was this delicious food that had been offered to Krishna. For me, that was a total new concept. They called it prashadam. Prashadam in Sanskrit means a blessing. And this food that is offered to Krishna in devotion is supposed to be accepted by the divinity in the temple, and it becomes pure. It becomes pure food that is supposed to cleanse your heart from all the unwanted things that do not allow you to know who you are and love fully. So I was 16, got my first car, and every day after I finished school, I would drive to the temple to eat and to chant and to learn to meditate and to listen to lectures from the Bhagavad Gita. So my spirituality came from food. That was the first connection that I had between food and God. Is there anything that you would like to ask me from that, or should I continue? You tell me.
Oh,
Guide
no,
me.
that's beautiful. Just to back up, if you don't mind, going back to your childhood, the person out there that might be listening to this, young man, young woman, or even child listening to this that is struggling with that same struggle that you had, what would you say to them? What is one step that they could take to find their spirituality? Because I can't even imagine how hard that was for you as a child, or anybody out there struggling, hiding, their identity. But just any sort of advice you can give to somebody listening out there to touch their soul. Like, what was your mindset? Like, how did you get through every day? I can't imagine it being such a struggle, But if you can expand on that.
The interesting thing is that if you notice, culturally, we have all this, we're supposed to be this, we are supposed to follow these patterns that have been given us by our culture. So as a man or as a female, you're supposed to grow up and marry and have children. Somebody said that is supposed to be the case. But if there's somebody there out there that is listening to this right now and is struggling and coming out, the beautiful thing is that we're souls, and your father, your mother, your sisters, or your friends will always love you for who you are. So this whole fear-based mentality that we have of not coming out is only hurting us, or is only hurting you right now. So I would really suggest that in order to be loved by everybody fully, you should be yourself. Tell the world who you are, because they're missing out. For example, right now I feel you are missing out, and the people around you are missing out, because you're a beautiful soul. And we are beautiful living entities that have been put in this planet for a reason. And unless you love yourself for who you are and you show yourself to others, you're never going to find that happiness that is within. Ha! Beautiful. Happiness from within.
Wow, that's really deep. Thank you very much for sharing that.
I feel that ultimately, when I came out...
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
At 23, took me a while. But finally, I found my voice, and I found who I was, just because I accepted myself and loved that part of myself that I thought that needed to be kept in the darkness. Because only when you bring light into the darkness is that we will shine, and that every single part of our body and of our soul and of our minds can fully shine and help others, and ultimately love fully yourself and the rest of the world.
Wow. That's beautifully said. Thank you for that, Om. I wanted to touch on when you were talking about, during our conversation, can you expand on when you burned your finger and how, where your cooking journey first began when you were a child? How old were you when that happened?
Well, I grew up in a house where my mom was a stay-home mom, so she made breakfast and dinner for us every day. In that aspect, it was hard for me to even learn how to cook because she always did it. But the first time that I tried to cook, when I was around 10, I burned my finger, and I decided that cooking was not for me. So I never even explored the possibility that I could be a chef. But then so it's interesting. Right there's a little pattern that when we do something that makes us afraid, it can be I think the point that I want to come to is that anything that scares us, we should explore it deeper. Because I said that I was never going to cook, but now I find my biggest bliss in cooking. Same thing. If you're afraid of coming out, come out. Because that's where you're going to find your highest bliss. Expressing yourself or doing those things that we're afraid of.
Absolutely. Wow. That's That's true. There's actually this book. It's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
I like that.
Yeah. So yeah, that thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. So basically you're on this journey as a teenager. So you going back to when you were 16.
Yes.
We're talking about how you were finding yourself. Can you expand on the three exchanges, the three languages of love that you had spoken about when we spoke yesterday?
Right. I am going to fast forward a little bit to come to that place.
Go for it.
So
Yeah.
when I was 16, I started going to a temple and my life changed. Like, I used to smoke weed all the time to hide away. It was like my hideaway. But when I went to a temple, the monks and the people that I met there were kind of straight edge. So they did not do intoxication. So immediately I was like, oh, I am not going to smoke weed and I'm going to meditate. And it was beautiful because it's opened my heart to a different reality where I didn't have to escape all the time. And when I finished high school at 18, I decided to experience the temple fully. So I moved into the temple. And the first service that I had in the temple was helping in the kitchen, like chopping vegetables. In the tradition of bhakti or devotion, what the Hare Krishnas practice, cooking is an act of meditation. In Miami, I started just by chopping vegetables, something so simple. And a year later, I was moved to the New York temple because there was a bigger ashram where more monks lived. And in this ashram, a big part of the service that the monks did for the community and for New York, we taught cooking classes in NYU and Columbia University to students that were interested in learning about vegetarian cooking, compassionate cooking, and that were starving and wanted to have an amazing meal. So these programs were very successful, and we had around 200 students, from 150 to 200 students that we were cooking for and that we were showing them how to cook. So it was a big production, and the monks, part of the training of the monk was to learn how to cook, because we were not only teaching other people, feeding others, but we would cook for each other. So that's when I was talking to you about yesterday. There is this sage or this monk from the 1500s. His name is Rupa, and he wrote a beautiful book called the Upadeshamrita.
What was the name again? You cut off a little bit.
Rupa Goswami.
Okay.
And Rupa Goswami laid out the path of the monks in writing. Or not the monks, or he was very interested in writing about his experience and how to guide others to go deeply into their spirituality, how to go deeper and more and take advantage of what is presented to us through spirituality. And in his book called the Upadeshamrita, Upadesh means instruction and Amrita means nectar in Sanskrit. So the Upadeshamrita is the nectar of instruction. So this was, when we talk about nectar, is like the sweetest part of anything, right?
Yeah.
Like honey, it's super sweet. So one of the verses of the Upadeshamrita talks about how to develop relationships. And so the first two instructions of this verse is dadati pratigrinati, meaning to give and to receive loving gifts. So is the fair exchange. In order for you to create a relationship with somebody, you need to give gifts, or either, like for example with your mom and your dad, that's like comes from the heart, or with your partner, like you want to give them roses, chocolate, something, right? A gift. And you also have to learn to be loved by receiving gifts. Then the second piece of this equation of how to feed love to someone else is through feeding them, cooking. Because if you notice, eating is the most primal thing that we do. Our bodies are just but a result of every single thing that we have eaten in our life. In order to see, in order to move, in order to speak, we need to drink water, we need to eat to sustain our bodies. So when you actually feed someone, you are giving him the gift of life. So part of the monastic life was to create loving bonds with the other monks, because because in order to be a monk, or in order to be a spiritual person, there has to be someone who you tell what you're going through, and that is going to guide you. So that piece is the third instruction, which is revealing your mind in confidence and receiving or hearing the other person, your friend or your beloved, in confidence also. So those are Sat Vidhi, Priti Lakshanam. These three exchanges. Sanskrit is a very poetical language. So it says Priti Lakshanam. Priti means love, and Lakshanam is like embellishes. Do you have anything that you want me to expand from
No,
there?
that's great. No, thank you for that. That's really deep. It's really beautiful how you're explaining about the energy of, food and giving, because everything is energy, right? That's really
Yes.
beautiful. Yes. That thank
And
you for
as humans,
that.
what we want to do is love, right? We want to love and be loved.
Absolutely. Without love, there isn't anything. Absolutely.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and transition. And so you're in New York, on the Lower East Side of New York, and
Yes.
you're living in this like safe bubble. And can you explain about the insight that you had? In order to grow spiritually, you need to become an adult.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, at least for me, I started my monastic school life when I was in high school, but I was 16 when I started going to a temple, and immediately I was hooked. I was like, okay, meditation. I'm going to go to the temple every day. So it was almost living in the temple. So I did not date or had any interaction with women or men in that sexual way in my teenage years. And I moved into a monastic life where I was completely protected in this bubble of meditation, of silence, of reading. But I was so protected that I was still like a child. I felt like I was a child. And there came a time where I realized that I was stuck, that within my heart, I understood that I was not growing up. And I realized that in order for me to fully shine as a human, I needed to first of all come out, I was even afraid. My conditioning from my childhood was so deep. And I was in so much fear that even though I was in a community of people that I knew that were not gonna reject me, I was still afraid. I realized that in order to take life, to really go deeper in my own spirituality, I needed to become an adult.
So what did you
That's when I
do?
decided that I wanted to leave the temple.
Wow. And at this point, you were 23, 24, correct?
Yes, I was around 24. Yes.
And so how did you transition from leaving the temple and then going into basically the real world?
This was
What was your
I
mindset?
feel
Like, what was
blessed.
going on through your mind, like?
Oh God, it was confusing and scary because of course, like something that I've been struggling my entire life with like social anxiety of having to hide away my personality and try to be someone else that I wasn't. So still, even though I was a monk and I was meditating, all these things, I was hiding something still from myself. So of course, I'm leaving the temple now. I don't have to follow all these rules. I don't have to wake up early anymore. I don't have this loving support, and now I'm pushed into the world. In a way, it was an easy transition because I had a job. Of course, I'm living in New York. I have never had a job in my life.
How did you get a job? Can you expand on that?
Yes, the temple has a restaurant on the first floor. Now it's a beautiful restaurant owned by my teacher by my cooking teacher. At that time, it was managed by the monks. So the monks were like, "Well, work here, we'll pay you, and get your room, whatever. Go into the world, look for a room, and we'll pay your first month of rent. Whenever you can, pay us back." So I was like, I felt so blessed and supported that way because there was no judgment of me wanting to experience the world. So I started working, and when I was a kid in Miami, I used to do rock climbing, and I was really good at it because that was my escape for a while. So when I discovered that I could climb in a climbing gym in New York, and it was really close to my house, so I started climbing again. And it took me a while to get good at it again. But rock climbing, or I do bouldering, which is yeah, it's a small rock climbing, so you don't need to be hooked by a harness, and it's very social because you're sitting with people and you're discussing what you're doing, you're showing them what steps you're doing or coaching them, and you make friends. And as shy as I was with men and women, because I just didn't even have any pop culture. I had been out of society for 7 years, but I realized that my story was cool. And anybody that I thought that was cool, if I just started talking to them, and if we hit it off, and I would tell them about me, immediately people were like, "Oh, let's hang out." And then I realized that I was cool, that I didn't have to be afraid, and that was my transition. So I got my job. I started rock climbing. At this time, a girl in the climbing gym asked me on a date, and that was very scary because I have never dated anybody. But at that moment, I realized that I was just open to the possibilities of whatever came my way. And she was a beautiful lady, and she understood what I was going through. So she kind of walked me through dating, and I had my first sexual relationship with her, and then she made me so comfortable in that I was able to then experience something with a guy. And then I was like, yes, this is it. I'm actually gay. And I found my masculinity. I was like, oh yeah, I am a masculine guy that likes guys. And then it was like a hallelujah moment, because my heart opened, and I was able to be my full self. I mean, of course, as humans, we're always blooming, and we're trying to like peel all these layers that we have imposed on ourselves. But I think that was the beginning of my own acceptance and loving my gay side, to accepting that I was gay. And yeah.
Wow.
Is there anything else?
No, that's really, thank you for sharing that. That's such a deep insight. Somebody, may be listening to this, maybe they want to experience going to a temple, and maybe they're like, well, how did Om do it when he got out? And here you are sharing. So thank you for that. It's a really beautiful story. Thank you. So here you are in Brooklyn, New York. And so tell us what happened after that. Like, did you end up coming to Los Angeles after that? Or where did your basically continue now to your cooking journey started taking off? What did you do after Brooklyn, New York?
Yes. Well, while I was in New York, I got a job with this Ayurvedic chef. She's a master. Her name is Divya Alter. And she hired me to be a sous chef in her company. But she saw that I'm very artistic. I like making, my passion in life is to make beautiful things. So because that in the temple, I was taught that beauty is a sign of devotion. When you love something, you make it beautiful. And I had learned that cooking was a meditation, and that I could influence others' lives through the consciousness that I put in my food. So when I cook, I chant Sanskrit mantras that calm me and that open my mind and that make me feel loving. So she found out that I was a really good cook and that I was creative. So she made me the head chef of her company, and I did an apprenticeship with her for 3 years. And until I realized that there was something else out there, I stopped working with her and I became a private chef. I've been honing and growing my passion for cooking clean, beautiful food. And 2 years ago, my main clients in New York decided to move to Los Angeles, and they asked me to move here. And the universe had right before they decided to move here, I had met my now husband, Dustin, and we only dated for 2 months in New York, and he decided that he was going to move back to the West Coast because he's from here. So it was that when my client at the time asked me move with me, it was a win-win situation. I was like, okay, I have Dustin there. I have a job. I had lived in New York for 10 years. And even though my friends or the people that I call my family were there, I didn't know anybody here except Dustin. I gave it a try. So as afraid as I was or insecure about it, I was like, let's do it. And I moved here. And it's been a beautiful journey because then I realized that actually my client is a coach, is a business coach, and she encouraged me to shine even more, to not be afraid of exposing myself to the world and to be seen. So I created a website, I created cards, and I decided that I wanted to have a catering company, that I wanted to meal delivery, that I wanted to do farmers markets, and I wanted to teach cooking classes. And the moment that I told the universe, this is what I want to do and this is how I'm going to do it, opportunities are starting to rain.
Can you expand a little bit on that? Maybe somebody listening here is, wants to be a professional chef like yourself and turn it into a business. What are some steps that person can take? Maybe you can expand on that a little bit,
Yes. Well, a beautiful thing about being a chef is that one of the few professions in the world that where you don't need to go to school. First of all, many of the greatest chefs in the world had just it's kind of like an ancient profession where you actually don't need a diploma. So because you can learn from others, and if you're passionate about it, you're always growing. So for the longest time, I was afraid that I was not a chef because I did not want to call myself a chef because I never went to school. But I found out that my food was amazing, that everybody loved it, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm actually a chef. People come to me for recipes. I'm teaching others how to cook. And in New York, I was made the head chef of a company without ever going to school. So first of all, I wanted to say that is the piece where my success in my business started. Is that I was like, I claimed who I was. I'm like, yes, I am a chef. And the moment that I accepted my gifts, I feel like the universe started to rain opportunity on me. So if you out there are a florist or whatever you do in your life, you may not have finished school. Or you may not feel that you are as great as other people in the social media or whatever show. But because you're special and you know what you do, and the more you do it, the better you get at it, claim it. And then everything can happen.
Absolutely. Wow. That was beautifully said. Thank you for that. And can you expand on how you were just talking about telling the universe what you want? I can imagine you probably wrote these things down. Can you talk about the importance of goals and writing things down and making your dreams come true?
Well, so if you notice, I don't know what your experience, my experience is that, and I see it in some of my friends now, that we all like to be dreamers, but it almost looks like too far away to actually attain. So everybody wants to have money, or everybody wants to be, or a lot of people want to be famous, or a lot of people want to have a beautiful house, but they never know how to get there. It's because it's just like, it is only in the mental plane. The beautiful thing of actually deciding what you want to do. For example, my coach asked me, I want you to create a menu of what you think that you can offer the world. And I was like, well, I'm really good at catering. Even in New York, when I did not have an established business, people would look for me to cater their weddings. And it was always a success. But I did not have a business. It was because I was thinking small. So the minute that I wrote down, I was like, okay, I'm like a menu of the things that you offer. Because you become so clear that you're able to focus your energy, and everything that you do or your mental powers in order to do it. And then everything that you do, you're always connecting the dots. Everybody that you meet, you'll be like, oh yes, I'm a chef, I can cater for you. Oh, you want meals? Oh, I can teach you a cooking class. And it's beautiful because now with social media, the only thing you have to do is showcase what you do, be open to being seen. And that's what I liked about you when you were like, oh, I do this podcast, and I saw your Instagram. I was like, yeah, I want that. Yes, definitely. I was calling you into my life. So writing down things and making, because for the longest time I knew that I was talented, but I didn't know which direction I wanted to go. So writing things down and becoming clear of what you do starts the process. I mean, even nowadays, my business is always changing. It's because more opportunity and more opportunity comes. So I can see now I'm like, oh, this is a good thing. This is not a good thing. Let's go for the best thing. But still, I have very clear what I want. And that's how I've been able to focus in it.
Absolutely. Wow. That's amazing. So what does happiness mean to you?
Happiness is a state of mind. Happiness is actually, and it's beautiful actually, in the Vedic tradition. Do you know what the Vedic tradition, or like, do you understand when I say that?
Anyone that's listening to this, can you expand on that? I don't know what that is, no.
Okay, so the Vedas are
Please
the
tell
ancient,
us.
the Vedas are the ancient scriptures from India. The beautiful thing about the Vedas is that they do not only talk about God, they talk about our humanity, our mind, and the connection that exists between our bodies, our mind, our heart, and God. So it actually encompasses the universe because of that. And it's a guidance. It doesn't tell you what to do because when a religion tells you what to do, it's very hard to grow just because you're always judging yourself because you cannot be good enough for this religion. The beautiful thing about the Vedas is that it's all inclusive. So it gives you options. So happiness in the Vedas is described as satisfaction of the mind. How does satisfaction of the mind come is by understanding who we are and reaching for who we want to be, or for our aspirations. It's almost placing our goals in the altar of our aspirations. So I was saying, it's not that I am not claiming that I am the happiest person in the world, because as humans, we're always going in the roller coaster of happiness and distress. Because ultimately, we're in a body that suffers. There's people around us. There's mosquitoes that make us suffer. There's illnesses. There is death. There is hunger. There is a world around us. So happiness only will come, according to the Vedas, comes with acceptance of who we are, and through self-realization, trying to realize who we really are ultimately. So the realization of the soul. So there's so many aspects of happiness.
Absolutely. That was very beautifully said. Thank you. So just to wrap things up, so right now in your business, tell us a little bit like what you do on a day-to-day basis, how you generating income and able to work for yourself, not having to work for somebody else, for somebody that's listening out there that wants to get started their own business.
So this is amazing. So when I came to LA, my husband had just finished pilot school, but then when he finished pilot school, he decided that that's not what he wanted to do. And he was like, why don't you're so talented, let's open a business. So I was like, yeah. We had no money. I had a job, so I had an income, but we're two people living in a very expensive city, but we went for it. And we started Cooking with Them. And Cooking with Them is a catering company. We also do meal delivery around LA. And we teach cooking classes, we do events, and nowadays we also do farmers market. So on Saturdays we sell our vegan creations in Marina del Rey, and Sundays in Malibu. And in a daily basis, we have clients that are interested in having very clean vegan food. And in Ayurveda, it is prescribed that you eat fresh food, because fresh food has an element of life. Let me sidetrack there. Prana. I don't know if you've heard. Have you ever heard about this word, prana?
No, I haven't. When I think of piranha, I think of the fish, the piranha
It's actually
that
not.
has very sharp teeth
It's
and
not
eats
piranha.
people's.
It's
And if you
P
stick your
R
finger,
A
go ahead.
Prana. Prana.
Ah, okay, not the fish piranha.
Not piranha. Prana.
Okay, got it. Go ahead.
It may be my accent. So prana is the energy of life, but it's a very delicate element. So according to Ayurveda, when you cook, you should eat your food between 3 hours of your cooking in order to get the most health benefits and detoxing elements of food. The problem with the society that we live in, it's not a problem, but it's just like the outcome of technology and all the things that we have around us, microwaves, refrigerators, is that we always eat all food. Every time you go to a restaurant, most of the times that when you go to a restaurant, food is made days in advance and it's just warmed up for you. Sometimes it's warmed up in a microwave that, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, it destroys food. It destroys the delicate element of prana. So with my clients, I cook daily and we deliver daily. That's the promise of my meal delivery, is that you're getting food that is made the same day with lots of spices like cumin, coriander, fennel, and a lot of different Ayurvedic spices that help our body in, first of all, doing better to aid the metabolism of sugars, of fats, of carbohydrates, and also to detox the body. According to the Ayurvedic practitioners of this age, a lot of the diseases that people have right now is because our food doesn't have any spices. So when you add cumin, when you add coriander, when you add fennel, when you add cilantro, all these spices were created by nature not just to taste good, but also to aid in the upkeep of your health. For example, cilantro is one of the few herbs in the world that can help us in detoxing our bodies from heavy metals. Because of the society that we live in after industrial revolution, we have there's so much toxicity in the air, in the water. There's pesticides that food is ultimately put through. So yeah, that's what I do. I teach people how to eat clean food.
Wow, that's beautiful. And what is the simplest method one can start today to start eating healthy, would you say?
The most simple is to listen to your body. Food is medicine. Food can be medicine and food can be poison. So I think the first suggestion that I would give anybody is to listen to their body. When you eat, you should feel energized and there should not be discomfort. So the point here is becoming to connect to food and to, there's a word that I want to say is in the top of, I totally forgot right now, like intuitive, not intuitive eating, but conscious eating. To become conscious of what you eat and to always kind of observe, when you become conscious of what's going on in your body, you can observe how different meals, how different things you eat make you feel. And in that way, you can see what are the things that work for you, because not one diet works for everybody. So see how you feel after you eat a salad. See how you feel after you eat a burger. See how you eat after you eat a very processed food, and follow your gut. Really be compassionate, because this is what we want to do. In order to love others, you have to start at home, and that means loving yourself. So when you eat, be loving and really see how food affects you. How does that sound? Is there anything else you would like me to do?
No, that's amazing. I have one last question for you. What does happiness from within mean to you?
Happiness from within, for me, is to know that I am made out of love, and that I have an immense capacity to love, and that I am being loved all the time. So I think love can bring happiness from within.
Wow, that is so beautiful. Tell the audience where we can find you.
My Instagram is Cooking with Om, so at Cooking with OM. Then you can also check my website, www.cookingwithom.com. And if you follow me on social media, you can see the pop-up dinners that I do, or you can also contact me if you want to have some of my meals, or if you want to take some of my cooking classes. I think that's the easiest way to find me. Right now, also, I mean, if you're not listening to this from 3 years from now, I just collaborated with Cafe Gratitude, and they are selling one of my menus in their Larchmont location here in Los Angeles. So you can have the Om menu anytime you're there.
That's amazing. I actually love that place, Cafe Gratitude. Congratulations. That's a big milestone.
Thank you.
Wow. That's amazing.
I tell you.
That is amazing. So definitely recommend you guys to follow Cooking with Om on Instagram, and definitely check out his website, Cooking with Om. Om, I really want to thank you for joining me on this podcast and sharing your amazing, beautiful journey. And again, just thank you so much from the bottom of my heart to yours. This was a lot of fun, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are going to get a lot of value from your story. And again, thank you so much, and I wish you a great rest of your evening. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me, and keep doing this. This is beautiful. I know that you're going to touch so many people's lives, and I am so excited for you. And thank you for including me in your journey.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Om. Well, you guys, that's a wrap.
All right.
We'll be talking to you later. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Hey guys, well, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me in episode 2 of Happiness from Within. I really hope that this was able to touch your heart and soul in some way, and that you're able to take away 1 or 2 golden nuggets. You can reach Cooking with Om on Instagram at Cooking with Om, and you can reach him directly on his website at www.cookingwithom.com. And please make sure to subscribe and leave a comment. And I will catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.